This is season 8, episode 8, number 314 of the Decoded podcast. I've got my beverage with my straw. Chris, you don't have a straw in your coffee, do you? No straw. I like your mug. Say,
Hmm?
your mug? What does it? Oh,
Just
it's a
it's like,
head.
yeah,
Oh,
it's like a face.
cool.
Not sponsored by.
It says Starbucks? I can't
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Not, not.
That's a cool mug and not I would have never guessed it was a Starbucks mug. It's not on
Mhm.
brand for Starbucks, but I like that.
It's a, I yeah. I would say I've had it for a while. I've had it for a while. So
What I'd like to do
okay.
is have like I would like to take
I love
this.
answering people too fast sometimes. Like where they're using a comma, but I hear a period.
Mm, I got you.
Me
I
too.
want to I want to like see where the brand is. I want to take something and put it over it and rebrand it as something completely different than
You
this
know,
brand just for
I
fun.
no for sales. I just saw someone posting. I just saw someone posting up that they will go in. They will order, like for a weekend, 10 10 plain Costco cakes, 5 or 10, a number, white icing, white icing. They have all their candy stuff at home,
Oh,
and they have a printer that will do like candied, um, like those candy cards that you can kind of put on top of a cake with a
yeah.
picture or a name. So they'll 3D print kind of or spray paint or whatever that they'll put on the cake. And that the vanilla, whatever's a full slab, full slab at Costco, I imagine is like $25. It can't be much more than that. Pretty cheap. It's a big cake. They pop the top on it. They take it because it comes on its own paper. They'll put it in another one, like a slightly, more decorative one. They'll do the decorating on it themselves, or they'll pipe the name onto it, and they mark up the price and sell it. They don't have to make. So they're not a baker. They're just a decorator, and they're so you don't have to be a Yeti can maker.
That
I've seen parents doing that online as well. They're like, I'm not buying a $50 Yeti cup for my kid or a Stanley mug. Give me a break. Uh-huh. 3D printer, and they just create a sticker that says Yeti or Stanley, the Stanley insignia, whatever it is, the lion. I forget what it is. There's some sort of a thing in Stanley. They'll print it, they put on the cup and give that as a gift. I'm like, that's the way to go. Because it really isn't about the if you're I would say a very low percentage of individuals that are going for the Yeti and going for the Yeti or the Stanley is because of its specs. Yes, well, the double wall construction and the 34 gauge steel provide a far more hospitable environment for my hot or cold drinks. No, no.
I just want to rebrand things. Our
Mhm.
chids or chids. Like I just want to
Yeah.
make it my own.
Yep.
Um, so I'm happy that we're podcasting today. I've been sick,
Mhm.
and you know, anybody who's been sick understands when you are at the lowest of the low with your sickness. Man, there's nothing worse. There's nothing worse. Um, Not being able to function. I remember the one day I was getting out of bed and I could barely like get out of bed, like stand up, walk around, feeling like garbage. And then I had some days where I was at work, working and feeling like garbage. And people like, why are you here? I'm like, because I need a solid 2 weeks off. I need a solid two. Now, it's funny, as I'm saying this, I know exactly how you might respond. So this is what I'm gonna say, kind of thinking with Clough sitting on my shoulder. I'm not taking 2 weeks off. I'm not going to stay home for 10 days, 10 work days. I'm just not going to. I don't know why. That's a whole other question. Why wouldn't I? Well, there's not reasons. But anyway, so I took a couple of days off. And when I went back, people were like, whoa, you kind of still. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm sick. And we're talking pre COVID. What do if you tell me to go home, that I have to go home and take my sick days, I will. But nobody's going to tell me to do that. And I'm in a room with half the room sick. Like my wife and I were talking about this. This is how we lived before COVID. People just went to work and school sick. People just go places sick. Um, and then COVID happened, where I think in the circles I roll in, it was a little bit adopted. Like, oh, okay, if you're sick or if you have COVID, then you will follow protocols. And now I think my head is back in the pre-COVID. I'm sick and I can't stay home for 10 days in a row. No, I'm not gonna stay home. I could. I'm not gonna stay home. But I'll tell you, that morning I rolled out of bed and I got ready for work. I was like, this is so dumb. We live in such a dumb society and I'm part of that stupidness. I totally get that. I'm on board. Um, that's how I felt. That's how I still feel. I'm starting to feel more alive. Like I told you, it's the first time I've had a cold drink in a while because the cold makes me start to want to cough. I feel more alive, but I'm still, the other day when I was talking to you after work, I'm like, bro, I'm gassed. Like I could go home and just sleep now and wake up tomorrow morning, but I can't because of dad details and the few like the 4 or 5 days where I was just dead to the world. When I came out of the room and went to see the family, it was like life is just going on as I'm in bed up here dying or feeling like I'm dying because we're always dying. My kids hate it when they say something. I'm like, you're dying all the time. So stop complaining, start living. And they're like, oh, dad, they just shake their heads.
Precision of language. I like it.
Precision of language. Anyway, so
Yeah.
I'm feeling like I can do a podcast today. I'm drinking something cold.
Mhm.
Could I use more time in bed? Yes, I could. But the society we live in, and then you probably say, well, who cares about society? You're right. But there are things happening, things moving. You, Society can't have it all. Society can't have me staying away from humans and being with humans to make things happen. You can't have both. And I guarantee you, people at work might be like, you need to stay home and get better. But the flip side is there are people who work for my organization that they're like, you can't take 100 days off. What are you thinking? It's just interesting to me, which leads me to the bottom line of I'm going to do what I want to do, how I want to do it, and that's how it's going to be. That's how it's going to be. Um, I just want to say that. So welcome back to Decoded, Roland and Chris. It's good to see you, and Rochelle's with us. Good
Good
morning,
morning,
Rochelle.
Michelle. Mhm.
Gary won't be with us, and I'm not going to tell you why. I'm not going to tell the world why.
Mhm.
But Gary's not going to be with us today, so I wish Gary well. Gary, if you watch this one day, I'm saying hello. I hope you're well. I had a moment yesterday. Can I keep talking? You
Mhm.
want to jump in?
Mhm.
I had a moment. I've been having moments. My wife's best friend passed away on Monday. No, my wife's best friend passed away last week. Um, she had cancer, and they tried to treat her, and it didn't work. And so they stopped treatment, and shortly after they stopped treatment, she passed away. And so I've spent a lot of time reflecting on life because I'd say it's rare for your friend to pass away. She wasn't my best friend, but because she was my wife's very close friend, I was exposed to her over the years that I've lived here. And so I've been reflecting. And last night or the night before, I was thinking, okay, I really want to do this, but I don't know how to do it, and I don't know if I'm going to. But I want to go into Decoded Podcast, and I want to collect. I want a transcript of all of our episodes so I can take them and I can put them into a generative AI like Chat GPT, for example, create a Decoded Podcast GPT and insert all the data into it and continuously do that and then play with the idea of, here's a situation, what would Roland say? What how would Roland respond in this situation? Or what would Chris say here based on the data set that we've given you? I just want to play with that because I know it's going to get smarter. I know all the generative AI is going to get better. And then I was,
314 episodes is a pretty big data set.
it is, but I still don't think it's big enough.
Oh, it's not, and the
Oh,
great thing is that there's no action that what you just said doesn't exist anymore. Like, that statement doesn't exist anymore.
what
The idea
statement?
that the idea that there's a maximal size to a
Oh,
data set, right?
gotcha.
So even you, if that's just you saying it personally, I'm just saying that statement is a figment of imagination, because the the reality is that the data set has to be bigger. It has to be more. It just has to be. That's the design of the learning machine, right? It has to have more information. So your preference is maybe it's not big enough. I would still say 314 episodes on average, hour and a half each episode. So you're looking at whatever, like 500 hours at least 500 hours, if not more, of us chatting. Let's be conservative, maybe 550 even, because some of the episodes went longer than, like, we did 2-hour episodes, enough that it pushed that up. So 500 hours of audio that the AI could aggregate into sort of like two personas, two specific personas. They could do that pretty readily. But are you going to drop in you'd have to drop in transcripts?
I
Can
believe
it?
so.
Yeah, because it can't. Or you would have to, if you downloaded the audio, could you feed the audio into the GPT?
I don't know. I
I
want to
don't know if
say
it can
no
listen. Yeah, I
to
don't know
you
if it
and
can
I.
listen.
Right,
Yeah,
but maybe somebody out there can make that work.
right. That's
So
true.
all of this comes now. I've had, you and I have talked about this. We pass away, and our kids can come to this archive and
Mhm.
spend time with us. But I was thinking about my wife's friend, and I was thinking about her kids. I was thinking how, and this, and also this is connected to the my wife. I don't know how much I can say. My wife has been texting her friend, but her friend is gone. But my wife still has that. I'm going to talk to her today. I'm going to tell her something today. I'm like, my God, wouldn't it just be friggin' amazing if she could respond?
Well, the starting point, the actual psychology behind that, part of that is that your spouse's brain actually doesn't know the difference in that moment. So the act of texting and sending the message to something specific, it, you, the person's brain isn't actually processing that they're not, um that the receiver isn't there. The brain, they do when they sort of cue in, but typically the brain doesn't know that. And that's how brain works with experiences in general. It actually doesn't know the difference between a figment and an actual experience. If it's being brought to mind, the brain sees that data as the same thing. So if the brain sees that data as the same thing, I can entirely see how that would be a therapeutic, or at least it would be a continued or organic process to continue to post up. I think at some point it becomes probably emotional or painful when the reality of no response is coming back. So there isn't the reciprocity that makes it truly organic and interactive, right? Or iterative. So the equivalent of a journal, right? A digital journal. But I think probably in the short term, it is a way to sort of use this proxy to still speak, to keep their friend alive. It's a fascinating thing. I remember the first year, 2 years after my dad died, I was still getting posts, like stuff from Peter Clough, like stuff. There was stuff that at Facebook was still putting out there as things that they liked. I don't know if it was ever shut down. I haven't bothered going to look if that thing was still there, but seeing him pop up in my feed, and I'm like, yeah, yo, he's not here anymore. Like, for me, it wasn't a welcome thing. I was clear. I was sort of like growing in a different direction, but I could see how other people would really crave that nostalgia and cherish and hold on to that nostalgia.
I I would love to have I would love to have a tool where I could talk to my dad and have it respond the way my dad would talk to me, like with the broken English or even in Arabic, whatever. Just give it back to me in a way that something in me would be like, that is something my dad would say. Something familiar. That's all. Something familiar. Um, Knowing, yeah, it's not my dad, but the novelty and the understanding that something has taken data of my father and is able to play with the patterns and the nuance, if you could even call it that, in a machine world, and then spit something out that to me uh, would be familiar or would allow me to make connections, to trick myself into making it familiar, whatever. I just wish, I think that you and I, what we're doing here at the very least, these conversations, the fact that we're talking about our kids and will they come, will they listen, will they get anything from any of this? Can they get anything from any of this? I think is fantastic. So I just, and this like season 8, episode 8, 314. I say, hello, Ben and Will. I hope you guys are well. Will they hear this? Will they see this? I don't know, but I just did it. Maybe, maybe I, selfishly, every time I start an episode, if I'm starting, I mean, you're welcome to start them too. Every time I say season blank, episode blank, number blank, 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 hey, William and Ben, hope you guys are well. They got to get to season 8, episode 9, 315 to hear that and see that maybe I start a new thing. I don't know. I just think, man, when I was visiting my mom, when my son and I went to visit my mom in Ottawa a short while ago, and I was going through old pictures with my mom, bro, I was there for what, 2 days, 3 days, and there was no way we were going to get through all the photos and all the stories. And I'm being retroactive, right? I'm not being proactive. We're like looking at stuff. I took like 1,000 pictures of my dad over the different years of these photos being taken of my dad, asking questions. It would have been so cool. It would be so cool to have my dad right here.
Your example chokes me up. I wonder what listeners, what Rochelle thinks about that. Our use of social media as an actual, you know, telephone to the future, saying hi to your kids. I'm kind of mind blown that you and I didn't land on that as a thing back when we first talked about the legacy of this podcast. We didn't actually land on that spot, that, just a fist bump to the future. And we've talked about this in different pieces. Maybe the talking was the necessary professional personal development to get you to that thought. I don't know how long you've had a bouncer in your head, but we've talked about Gmails to the future. We've talked about our dads. You've spoken at length about wanting to have content. I think when I mentioned the Facebook thing, you're like, I wish my dad used that. That'd be great. The voice, we've talked about the smoking, like the sensory memories of our fathers, laughing at the fact that it's not likely either one of our families are going to go back through our back catalog, all this audio that we've posted up, but there's a highly likelihood that YouTube will exist and keep existing, in some shape, form. And it's never what you're actually sending that's the powerful part. It's when somebody finds and they start searching. So at some point, and I know that I went through this process after the fact with my father, you have questions and you try going to look for answers. I had one space, I looked at his writing. Of course, I was their first Facebook. I did a little bit of talking to my mom. That wasn't as a comfortable place for me to be. Talked with my sister. Aggregated, brought the memories back together. I'm what a great gift of a mentioning, just to sort of think about that and using social media as the projection into the future, not as a marketing tool. Not trying to build any clout, because whatever clout we're trying to build, we probably won't be allowed back. We won't be there to cash in on it. Not like my kids would even start to listen to it now, and they can just walk in the kitchen. I'm sitting there, right? But yeah,
My
hello,
my
hello from Sunday, November the 3rd, 2024, 8:34 a.m. in the morning. Hey kids, hope you're doing well. I know you're doing well. If you're not doing well, you will. You'll eventually be well again.
It's the ups and downs.
It is absolutely.
For all the downs, there's an up, and for all the ups, there's a down.
Hmm. I'm having
So
some feels from that thought. Those are that's complex.
it is complex, and well, a couple of things. My youngest said to me one day, he was asking questions about this podcast, and then he went off to a corner to listen to it or to watch it on his own. Didn't last long. He came back. He's like, you guys were talking about politics or something, your work. He's like, it was boring. I'm like, yeah, it probably was to you, but maybe one day you'll want to dig into that boring, because it won't be boring anymore for whatever reason.
Hmm.
It'll be you just want to maybe spend time with your dad.
Or when they go searching again, there's a big equalizer, not equalizer, um, the catalytic moment of craving something or being bothered by something or being lit up by something. Hell, you wouldn't spend 5 minutes on something, and then the next moment you have a curiosity and you've somehow blown through 2 hours scrolling, just reading. And, I think that if we make it specific about getting to know people or getting to know a person that we no longer have direct access to, I think that's one of those catalytic moments. I think you're right. Right now, he can walk into the kitchen and throw a joke at you, get a drive somewhere. That's just the reality. When that feed is turned off, I think as humans we're creative. That's when we move to story. That's when we move to sort of a conversation. That's when we move to artifact. That's when we move into nostalgia. Um, so like you said, it's all good. I don't think I even Karen, like even if I go back to chasing squirrels, I think she maybe has listened to 2 episodes, 1.5 episodes. So squirrels, I have, at least 100 hours of content there. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. I don't think my wife's ever listened to Roland Chidiac Cadets, and that's okay. I'm just, it's there. It's
Mhm.
somewhere. Somebody can find it. Rochelle said you need an audiobook for your boys, and then I asked her to tell me more about that, and she said she wants to get a tattoo of her grandpa's writing
Mm.
on every card he wrote for birthdays and Christmas, ended with "Keep smiling." I took that, Rochelle, as you wanted to get a tattoo of all your grandfather's writing. Imagine Rochelle covered. You know how people get body coverings of tattoos, and Rochelle's would just all be messages from grandpa?
I've seen that when kids try to cheat on tests. They have it written like somewhere. They're like, look at the palm of their hand.
I had a kid like that recently. I don't
I
know.
remember you
Did I?
telling the story.
Yeah. Okay. Did I tell it on the podcast?
No, no, no. You told it to
Oh.
me.
The kid basically spent 75 minutes trying to cheat. And I was like dying. I was laughing. I was like, is this for real? Like, are you doing this? And it was one of those things where it's just like the gall of the kid. And the, I, I'm not getting the vibe that he's a very nice kid. Like, just in the moments I've dealt with him, he's not very nice to me. So it's like when I was playing with the idea of, hey, I see you're cheating, you might want to stop. He was like 75 minutes. Did I tell you that the next day he decided not to come back and write his test in the room with me?
Hmm.
So the student success teachers, they basically said to me, they basically like gave me two thumbs up. And I'm like, what does this mean? They're like, he would rather try to cheat in his classroom than cheat in here because you were all over him. Good on you.
Mhm.
I'm like, "Oh, I didn't." I was all like, I didn't get that idea." They're like, "No, that's why he's not coming back, 'cause it's gonna be easier for him to cheat wherever it is he is than to cheat in here." So good for you. Like, they were like, "You earned some stripes today." I'm like, "Oh, cool." Um, anyway, Rochelle talking about the tattoo is actually what got me talking about all this stuff in the first place. This morning, I was on Instagram and I bumped into an Instagram account of a guy who's a tattoo artist,
Mhm.
and he does a lot of the stuff he showcases are like sleeves on arms or legs.
Mhm.
And I had this idea that I would have a tattoo of pretzel somewhere on me in color.
Mhm.
Everything else would be kind of black and white, except where pretzel would be on my sleeve, um, different places on my sleeve where he'd be peeking out from behind something or like climbing up on something and he would be in color. It was neat.
Right.
I don't know. That tattoo of him got me thinking about the generative AI memories and like having things with you moving forward. That's all. I just think, man, to hear my father again in his broken English or in Arabic that I might need to research to understand again, but to have that come out when I'm seeking advice or just, I don't know, needing a moment,
Mhm.
I think it would be kind of powerful. I think. Rochelle's given us a little bit more information. My aunt wrote a book for my grandma on her 100th birthday of all her memories from her life. We all have a copy. You could compile important memories and information for them in the future. Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know if you've seen, I've seen on socials advertisement for these kinds of journals where it's like start writing, answer all these questions in this book now, and then give it to your kids as a gift so that
Mhm.
you have parts of you and understandings of you when you're not around anymore. I really would like to think that's what kind of what we're doing here, but nobody's. Is anybody going to watch this? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't
But
know.
you know, it's here. It's here.
It is. I was just looking up to pivot back a little bit. I was looking because you were talking about the rebranding,
Hmm.
and um I had I was thinking about the Yeti, the that Yeti thing, right? And you could I put into ChatGPT, how do you say Yeti in Lebanese? And it's the same word apparently, but you just have Al Yeti. So I guess the pronunciation might change a little bit different. Then I've been playing around with your image, see if you wanted to put a Yeti image of yourself on the can, which I thought or on the thing. I think it'd be pretty cool. So I don't mind redesigning that for you. And I was like, well, how would you say, like, it was funny. It gave me a few different things. It actually said one of the I don't know why it did it because I wanted to know the pronunciation. Um because the words that it gave me, I'm like, I wasn't quite sure why it was giving me the words. The what it gave me back was, hey, are you seeing that Yeti? Which I guess in Lebanese is, I mean, that'd be too much marketing on a can, right? You wouldn't want to put that on a can. Um, Shaif, are you seeing? Shaif Hadak Al Yeti. That'd be kind of cool. Do you see that Yeti? And then you're like, that's my mug. That's my face on the mug. That's my mug on the mug. That's awesome. I can put up one for Polish too. I don't know what I gotta check to see what Yeti is in Polish now. It probably won't tell me.
Can I pivot a little bit?
Pivot away, pivot back, wherever you want. Oh, it actually translates to snow monster
Oh,
or
cool.
man of the snow.
I like that with my face with a little bit of ice or whatever on my beard.
Snow monster, man
Man
of the
of
snow.
snow.
That's what you can do. You can get it translate Snidgie so like snow monster, Sałek Snigu, snowman or man of the snow. Have you seen that Yeti? I like
Okay.
it.
So I got my driver's license when I was 16 years old.
Good for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
As I could, I did. So on my 16th birthday, this was awesome this is a great memory. On my 16th birthday. So I was never allowed to miss school. There was no such thing as dad, can I have the day off? None of that existed in my house. If I was sick, whatever it was, the flu, if I was dying of something, I was only allowed to stay home for one day. Then the next day I was instantly back at school, whether I was dying or not. But on my 16th birthday, my father let me miss half the day, the morning, to take me to the driver's place and to get my what we called a 365 back then, my learner's permit. And as soon as I passed that test, they give you your paper and you go to the next kiosk
Mhm.
and you book your road test. And so I got my permit in September, and the soonest road test possible was in February. So I had to wait from September to February to get my real license. Anyway, the I don't know why I'm telling that part of the story. I've been driving since I was 16, and I think I'm 48 years old. So I've been driving for 32 years. And in 32 years of driving, I have never ever put winter tires on my car. The car that I primarily drive, I've never purchased winter tires. I've never had them. My father never had winter tires. It was not a thing in our house. We put all seasons on, we drove them all seasons. Well, recently, my father in law sold his car, and uh, he has the same vehicle that I have. And he was like, I don't know, I was at his house for a barbecue, and he's like, "Do you want my winter tires?" I'm like, "Sure, I'll take them." So I took them and I put them on the car yesterday. And I just wanted to share that I've been driving for 32 years and I finally have snow tires on my car. I don't know why it brings me so much joy, but there's something about it that just makes me happy. I don't even know what it is.
Why the change? Why? I don't understand the why. What's your why?
For putting snow tires on?
Yeah, yeah.
Because they were given to me and I can, I guess. I don't
So
know.
you got some for free that cost you $80 to use? That's where my brain goes. So whatever you paid to have them put on, you got a free set of tires, bonus, you're in the black, and then you paid someone to put them on your car. Now you're in the red. If I'm just curious, you're okay for 32 years. I know you're rich. You're a rich man. You're a rich man with money to spend. You know, money to spend. But like, why would you why?
I
You've made it through. You've made it through the wilderness of driving your family in your car. It is
I
not
have.
only you for the most part, your kids every once in a while. Why? Why now, chids?
I don't know. It's new, it's different. I thought
Hmm,
I'd give it a go.
all right. Now
Yeah.
I know you got a guy. I know you got a guy, and I'm imagining your guy for the tires is probably like me, it's $100 when I flip.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So it's $100. It might come down a little bit. Karen goes somewhere else. They've reduced their prices. Um, so where she goes at $70, that's kind of the going rate, unless you're getting some work done, and then they kind of throw it in and it's a little bit
Right.
cheaper, right? The combo. But cost me $100 twice a year. So $200 on the tire changes. And it could be more, but I choose to take my tires home and throw them in the garage. But I can see a future where I'm not the guy that's going to be carrying those tires are heavy. especially on the like. I think your Honda is kind of the same size as my Santa Fe. It's in that relative, so it's the next size up tire. It's not the exact same. Maybe you. I know mine aren't. My tires wouldn't fit on a regular car. They're the next size up, so those are heavier. Um, yeah. So if I store them, that's $50 a year to store. So that'd be 250. Just if I was doing as well as you were with all seasons, I just think that $80 could go somewhere else or
Well,
whatever it is you pay. I don't know.
yeah, I paid a fraction of that.
Okay.
So yeah, not a big deal for the money thing. I don't know, it just seems new and novel, and I'm gonna give it a shot. Like, my wife has always had winter tires,
Hmm.
so I drive her car sometimes in the winter, so I get it, but I don't know, man. It was just something. It was cool. I don't know. It just feels cool. Feels good. I've got snow tires on my vehicle for the first time ever. I don't know. Rochelle says insurance discount. Yeah, I don't know. I I don't remember them asking me about winter tires.
Here's the thing,
No.
Rochelle. Here's the thing, because I'm starting to look into this, right? Insurance discount sometimes it doesn't change. It doesn't change your deductible. It's a $30 off. $30 off your overall, like $30, paying $30 more and not paying to flip your tires, and it's the same deductible and liability. I look at the liability. So right now I'm looking into this. It's funny. I like Rochelle's wisdom on this because right now we're in the process. I have to the end of November to decide whether, well, we do, Karen and I have to decide whether or not we're continuing with our security system. They've just said that so our security system is a dual banded system. It can communicate through the phone lines, but it also has a 3G data tech. But we got in early a 3G network connection. So if the hard line's down, it'll actually use mobile to call our security company. We got a message at the beginning of October saying that the 3G is no longer being supported in this particular tech. We have to upgrade to LTE in order to keep the system. So that's a separate charge just for that. And then in January is our renewal for the actual service. So it's two different charges. So in theory, if we had kept landline or kept our landline, we wouldn't be paying this extra fee for the 3G, that's just the thing. But we had a conversation. We're like, do we need it? Do we need it anymore? And we basically got to a point where we're saying nope. But then in the process of communicating with the actual company, they said, well, just make sure that you know, that it's not going to cost you more on your insurance. But I'm betting that whatever discount I'm getting is not going to be the same as the amount I'm paying for the actual service. So then you kind of go peace of mind. I'm like, well, I buy myself a Ring camera. If I'm not home, a Ring camera, and I can monitor through a service I'm already paying for, which is my own household Wi-Fi. The actual technology in the house still works if we set it. It's just not connected with a company. So, for example, if I set the actual alarm on the front and somebody busts in the door, it's still going to have our alarm in the house. It just doesn't automatically call the police. So there's elements that I think to myself, as Rochelle is saying, there might be a discount for having winter tires. But the question is the discount more or less than what you're paying to have to flip them all the time? I guess you could then say, well, okay, so if it's not about the money, safety, security, but then I'd go back to your example, 32 years. I would say that's a suggestion that there is a safe track record here. You drive long and far. You go to the States, you go to different experiences. You're out in the winter time, which is typically the more dangerous time to drive in Ontario because of the slipperiness, the snow, the visibility, all that kind of shit. So, Rochelle, I don't know. I like that mention, but I also wonder, is that just another charge that we tell ourselves has to be there just because, right? So I like that. I like that mention because I've got a similar challenge right now trying to figure out. And my gosh, trying to get in touch with my home insurance company has been a night. Well, not nightmare. Sorry, privileged living. It's been a pain in the ass. Every time I call, 3 different times of day, minimum 32 minutes waiting time. We'll call you back. They never call back. They don't. Their automated system is not working well. So thanks for lighting me up, Rochelle. Appreciate the perspective. I do. Oh, I wanted to say too. Yeah, double check. Fair enough. Double check, of course. But again, if the liability is not increased and you actually have proven that you have the skill to drive with all seasons, keep doing that. What's the sense of paying more? Rochelle, get the ink done. That's all I'll say. Get the ink done. Do not put it off. Do not think, well, what if my interests change? You find someone. Do not go. You get the confirmation, get the people around you that will give you the confirmation bias for you to move forward, because there's always people around you that will do the confirmation bias to tell you not to do it. They're going to give you 1,000 reasons why not. Get the peeps around you that will give you a conflict of interest in that. They'll give you confirmation bias towards action, which we don't often look for that. Not as often. Weirdo followers of Trump do. They get all the confirmation bias they need. All the nutso stuff that they do. But I've had a lot of conversations with individuals that, oh yeah, I've been thinking about getting a tattoo for years. As soon as they say that, I take that as like a period on their sentence. And I just say, do it. They're like, what? I'm like, do it. Set up. I said, I know 3 people. I have 3 great people that can do that ink. They'll do fine line. Do it. Sign up. Do it. But do it. I don't even want to talk about this anymore. Do it. Rochelle, do it.
Chris has spoken.
Do it. Turn yourself into your own art piece. And what a beautiful way to do it. What a beautiful way. Great little words of conviction, a reminder, an artifact. Social media will never be able to touch that. Never. You'll get to see it every day. I don't know if Rochelle has any ink. Here's something that people don't often tell you, but typically with ink, when you get it on the body, if you put it in a place that everyone can see other than you, it has to be in the appropriate orientation for the viewer to read, not you. So I just say that because sometimes people will get it kind of like they would get that phrase across here, and you can read it when your hand's up like this, but then when you're walking, so just be aware of that. One of the kind of tropes of getting ink, your hand is down by your side and the words are upside down. So people draw their attention to it. They're like, what the hell? Those words are all upside down. Just saying, it's a thing.
It's a thing, but ultimately you get to decide.
Of course you do. Of course you do. I guess it's like, it's something that I had never considered. Like, for example, this one right here of the faces, which you can see in length, they are in the orientation down. And at first I'm like, oh, but it's upside down. But I'm like, no, I kind of like it like that. I like that it's in the right orientation. And it's the same for all my other ones on my other arm here. They're all in the orientation as if my arm was hanging down beside me as a piece of art.
So you're good. Yes, you're good with the art on your body. You're good that you got it presented to others.
It's in viewer view.
There you
As
go.
in the reader, it's in their perspective. Like it's hung on a wall for art. I do know of some people that they don't care. They'll put it. You're right. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. But it's an interesting thing to consider because you might not actually be considering that duality. Are you putting it there just for you? Put it wherever you want. But if you are putting it there for other people as well to kind of appreciate, which is why I say if you're putting it in plain view, like it's something that you can look at, you're not putting it on the back of your shoulder or like in a spot that you actually have to really kind of Cirque du Soleil to be able to see it on yourself. I also bear in mind, I did hear of someone, they put something like that on their calf. And when they put it on their calf, they put it in reverse. So that because your calf is really hard to see. So they said, I know when I look at it, I'm going to be looking over my shoulder in the mirror. So they were thoughtful about that, right? I thought that's kind of clever. So the reverse orientation looks normal to you when you're looking into the mirror.
I like that too.
Interesting. Like I said, it's Rochelle, do it. Get it done. Get it done.
I
gotta say one more thing. And again, I don't know if Rochelle has any ink, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing if you are trying to find somebody right now and you can't book them to the spring. That's a good thing. And then you check on Instagram. This is totally haphazard. Sorry, Rochelle. But I'm a big fan of body art. I love it. So, expect to pay a good chunk of change typically. The average rate 250 an hour. Sometimes they'll cut you a deal if it's like a small script, they'll say, but typically 200 to 250 an hour, I would say, for a strong, well-established tattoo artist. And always check their Instagram feed. And hopefully message them. Work on the idea with them. A good artist will do that. They may ask for a deposit at some point, which is reasonable because consultation should not be free, right? But yeah, love it. Hope we get some pics on that whenever you get it. I would love to see the script. No, I would love to see the script. It's one thing to see the words. The other thing is to see it if it's in a shareable body space, because again, it's an intimate kind of an activity. But if we can see it and you do it, I would love to see it. Love to see it. That's it.
Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When I considered getting a few tattoos, I was thinking my calf, and I was thinking that they would be done in a way for others to see. So that's interesting that you mentioned this. But then I think if it was pretzel on my arm, no, I think I would have it presented in a way that presented as art for others to see because I can still see from my vantage point. I would still enjoy him, even though he might be upside down. I could still enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I worry about the pain. I don't know. I'm focused on that. I
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be, but I am. The other day when I was at school working, there was a student, grade 11 or 12, 16, 17 years old, tattoos all over her arms.
Mm-hmm.
And as she was doing her work, I walked up to her and I was just chatting. And I said, "You got to tell me, like, you're just a kid. How'd you get all these tattoos?" She's like, "Oh, my father does them and somebody else in the family." So she's like, I didn't pay for any of them. They're all just done for me." I was like, "Oh, interesting." Like a kid with like not sleeves, but enough tattoos that you look over and you're like, "Oh, this person's got tattoos on their arms." I was like, "Wow, that's crazy."
Mm-hmm.
Again, back when I was that age, if you had one, it was like, how did you get it? Do your parents know? You know what I mean? Like, and they weren't visible. They weren't visible the way that they are today. That's just my memory of all that. I'm loving that I get an extra hour today. I
Hmm.
like being given something. I do not like losing things. And I know it's going to be dark at noon or whatever they say it is, but for now I'm enjoying this hour has fed me. I got to sleep an extra hour. I feel awake right now, which is good. It's good. Do you
Yeah,
care
I'm not.
about
Nah, nah.
that?
I actually, yeah, I've as I'm going to bed last night, I say to Karen, I'm like, well, I'm going to be up at 4 a.m. tomorrow because that's right. And I said my body is just too trained. She's like, well, you need to stay up later. I'm like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. My body's trained to sort of get up at a certain time. Yes, there's an element of it to sleep for what it needs. You know what I mean? That's in that sort of 7 to 8 hour range. Um, but staying up late, losing that hour, gaining that hour, it doesn't matter. I tend to still fall in that that middle line, and I get up. Um, it's a funny thing in the morning. I sort of forget, like, not all the clocks in the house are now unified by the internet. I have to walk around. Do you have to walk around in the morning and change? Is that your job to change the clocks?
uh, I guess.
Is it something you've just taken on? So there's been
I
no discussion. You just do it.
I did it last night. I
You
did.
did. You changed them all before bed.
Yeah, it was just the microwave, the oven, and then my alarm clock. Everything
Hmm.
else will switch on its own.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a funny thing if you're the person that's in charge of that. I think I'm not in charge of it. I just
You just do it.
well because again I'm up at 5 a.m. So I'm like walk around, do it, let the dog out, feed the dog, kind of all do the morning the morning pattern or whatever, right?
Right.
What is fascinating is by the time you get around to, because my brain does this, which is kind of, it's not the right way to do it, but this is what my brain does. So I walk up to the first manual clock. I look at my phone because I feel like the phone is the one that's networked with the most accurate time. So I set that one. And then I walk to the next one. I set it to the same time. Then I walk to the next one. But what ends up happening is that the ones that are internet run at a different speed than the ones that are just manual. Does that make sense? So, you set all your clocks, and this is the thing, like we have a mixed house. We have the unified ones that are all on the internet, same bat time, same bat channel. And then we have other manual clocks that are always a minute off, sometimes even 2 minutes off. It's kind of fascinating. Because by the time I walk to the final one, it's been 2 minutes later, and I'm still setting it to the same time. So I've actually set that one 2 minutes late. So then an hour later, I'm walking around the house. I'm like, why are the clocks at different times? I'm like, well, because you set them at that clock. So yeah, that's probably something I think next year I'm just going to let ride. I'm not going to bother doing it. It's kind of nice to sort of be in the zone where, if it bothers somebody else, they can change it.
Does your car switch on its own?
I'll find out. I think so. On the on the settings, yes, it's supposed to do it on its own. The watch that I'm using, though, because I stopped using a smartwatch, I went back to just a digital watch. I just have time one and time. It actually has time 3 different times that I can set it to. So time one is still it's now 10 o'clock, and then time 2 is at 9 o'clock. So it's easy just to switch it on my watch, a quick flip. So
Cool.
Alieti, I want to do a snowman picture of you, a Yeti picture. It keeps doing weird graphics, though. I don't like the graphics it's doing. I did a capture just of you while we're doing the podcast, so I need to get just a clean headshot for it to look at. Give you some icicles, something that has to have a good halo, like a good outline too, right? Something that's like a good hard outlined kind of a picture.
Yeah. I
Man of the
have
mountain.
I have somewhere on one of my socials, I have a picture of me, a selfie having just come in from snow blowing the driveway, and in my beard were chunks of like ice. It was really
Yep.
cool. Yeah.
It's so funny. I don't know if I'm gonna have my beard back anytime soon. I came across a couple of my COVID feeds and post-COVID feeds. So the play that I'm in right now, I have to be clean shaven for it. And
When's
then
the
the
play?
next play goes up on November 22nd. So what are we, 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out?
Okay.
So yeah. And yeah, because I play a principal character and a secondary character.
Hmm.
So the big beard that I had, it would read specifically in one direction over the other. So they said clean shaven. I might be dyeing my hair or spray painting my hair each night. I don't know. We'll see.
Like to make it black or brown?
They haven't decided the color.
Oh,
Yeah, they haven't decided. I'm just gonna kind of go with whatever they say. Whatever. I'll wear it at school. That'll be fun when I'm at school. My students, right? When I shaved my beard off, they already had enough trouble with that. They're like, "What have you done?" I'm like, "It's for the theater." They're like, "Oh, okay. We want your beard back." I'm like, damn.
that's cool though that you show up at work and people are like, "What are you doing?"
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
an actor.
Yeah, controversial.
Is it controversial?
I think just people, the dissonance messes with people. Why would you do? They can't. I'm okay with hard pivots. Um, I guess it's me just playing with my own anarchy. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I think back to even, the fun version of this was even, one of the first times you and I did the Foodapalooza, showing up in my Santa outfit. Remember we were at the Lank and I had my green beard with the bells in it. Kids just like, who the hell's that guy? It's like Santa. That was awesome.
Rochelle's saying then for Christmas add lights to the beard.
I have, and you've done this as well. Blinged up the beard, right? I've been that
Yep.
guy. Yep. At the time, I was working in a community classroom, And the students that I had with me really, really, they loved it. They just like, what is going on? So I think I took inspiration from you because you the year before said that you had done something kind of profound that way.
I know my students always loved it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was good. It was fun. The things that you do in elementary school.
Yeah, the community classroom that I was working was a high support, high needs um, ASD classroom. So there were some very strong elements of very visible elements of elementary uh, pedagogy and class design. So the mindset just kind of flowed. Um, controversy, controversy. So I think I had something else, but I don't think I have anything else anymore. I don't know if there was anything. Was there anything else you want to drop?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah. Tires. Oh, I
AI.
was AI. Yeah, it was wide ranging. I'm curious. You never landed back on, but I'll put it here. What do you think about me using Jimmy as the proxy student name in class? I dropped it in one of the polos. Maybe it was one that got cut off. But one of the stories that I shared with you on Polo was that my students right now, my current crew, are prone to telling stories about sometimes on behalf of people or of people. And one of the rules is we have to be very, very cautious or mindful about telling stories about people who aren't in the room. And if they are in the room, then we need to seek approval. So we're not just sharing details about people. Like if you, my students will sometimes share a story and there's themselves in it, but then there's 4 or 5 other people, and sometimes the story reveals things about those people that those people wouldn't normally share themselves. So a few of my kids have high blurt superpowers, and the stuff just comes out. You're like, oh, okay. So I said to them flat out, I said, okay, if you're going to tell the story about someone who's not in the room, and so in order to sort of protect the innocent, we're going to use Jimmy and Jenny. They ended up moving towards Jimmy and Lisa. I don't know how they landed on that, but Jimmy and Jenny. I said, so if you're telling a story, you got 2 different characters that you can use. Still be mindful that we're not revealing anything that's like harmful, hurtful, negative, dark kind of stuff. But yeah, Jimmy's made it back into elementary school again. I think Jimmy in our cases has been everything from the principal to a parent to the random person on the street. Jimmy's now a proxy for story, a proxy character in the stories, the social stories that my students tell, and they are using it all the time. And it kind of catches me off guard. They're like, "Sir, can I tell you something about Jimmy?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. Now I remember who Jimmy is." Now, if I ever get a Jimmy in class, I'm going to have to be mindful to say, okay, this is not the same Jimmy. So,
I think that's great. I think that's great. Jimmy has just we've adopted and you've now created Jenny because I always just use Jimmy. I always go for the male what's the word I'm looking for? I go for the male archetype type of
mhm.
thing. But I like that Jimmy and Jenny. I feel bad for anybody named Jimmy that you know, we
no,
use that name.
no Jimmys were intentionally harmed in the in
No,
the.
they weren't. But how did we even land on Jimmy in the first
You
place?
did. That was
But
you.
oh,
You brought it as just you were telling a story, a school story. I don't think you went as far as to say, okay, let's call them Jimmy. I think you just said, okay, little Jimmy, and then at some point you're like, Jimmy's not really a student; it's just a name. So I think you got that one rolling from a story. Um,
hmm.
is it even possible to go all the way back to?
You know, it'd be cool if we had
Oh,
all of this stuff in GPT. We could just say, when was the first time the guys referred to Jimmy,
I
and then
think
spit
I'm
it out.
having a I'm having a memory because there's a story. Don't know what season it's from, but I remember you talking about going through the hall and sitting down beside a student and having a conversation, and other people kind of noticing that you were sitting in the hall with them. There was just a kid there that was not having a good time of it or something, which is something that both you and I have done in different stories. But I'm having a vague memory that that might have been one of the first Jimmies that you talked about in order just to characterize, kind of humanize, so it's not just some kid, some student. Um, I think that might have been a back in the day. That might have been one of the first versions of Jimmy that appeared
Hmm.
on our podcast. Maybe
Rochelle says her favorite Christmas memory of when we worked together is I guess the decorating the beard.
the decorating of the beard. It's actually, I will tell you, it takes a little bit of time to do.
It
Takes a little bit of
does.
time to do. I spray and painted mine green too, which it's
That's
just
right.
fortunate.
You did.
Well, it was fortunate because my it all comes in all white, so I could have put any color I wanted on it, right? One year I did red, another year I did purple, but the green, I put a lot of green in it.
People have asked me if I put glitter in it, and I'm like, no. That's the only rule my wife has around that whole thing with me is don't use glitter. That stuff gets everywhere, and I agree
Yeah,
100%. I hate glitter.
yeah, that shit's
Um,
gonna be falling out for weeks.
yeah, that's not cool. I don't like glitter. But I remember one year I was getting ready before the kids came in. I was really struggling, and Rochelle will appreciate this. And at the school I was at, we had a numeracy teacher who was around often, and I know her from just years of working in the system. She poked her head in. She's like, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "I'm dying over here." And she's like, "You want some help?" I'm like, "Okay." And I'll never forget. 10 minutes before the school day begins, me and the numeracy teacher are like setting up my beard. It was kind of funny actually. Now that I look back on that memory, um, she was all for it. She's like, "Yeah, it's gonna be awesome," and everybody was super pumped that day because it's the last day of school before the break. And I, that's something I miss about. I don't know how I would do this here in high school, but I miss doing that and then reading my favorite Christmas story. I don't know. Maybe I could do something around. I don't know. Somebody can give me a space in the building and they could be like Mr. C's reading a Christmas story at lunch. If you're interested, go to room whatever. He's going to be reading a Christmas book. I'll read aloud. I don't know.
Perfect.
Somebody might show up, somebody might not show up, but
I like it.
Chris likes it.
I like it. Rochelle, last words to you. Load us up with something.
I have to remember that we are, what's the word? We are delayed a little bit. So if
Are
I
we?
say goodbye right now, Rochelle
Mhm.
will hear that in a minute.
Is it a minute? Is that much? Oh, does
I,
it give that much? Something like that?
I don't know what it is. I just know that sometimes I'll be like, okay, we're gone. And then I turn it off. And then I look down and Rochelle posts a comment.
I just
So I'm
posted
like,
something.
well, Rochelle's not that slow, right? So
So
the feed is
I
delayed.
gotcha. I gotcha.
The feed is
Oh, here's the one thing. While we're waiting for if Rochelle, comes in with a thought to send us off on. This is the first time this has happened in my current community classroom, and I'm in conversation with parents on how to move forward with this. I have several conversations. So in my class, we talk about relationships in a three-step perspective of kind of intensity. We say neutrals, friendly, and friends. And I might have mentioned this I think I have mentioned it before in our conversation. And we talk about what are kind of like the criteria to be quite clear of like what's the social criteria, social credit to be at each one of those levels. Well, the students are now talking about what if you want to be more than friends, as in dating. So I'm in this in this really kind of fun and new space of uh between pedagogy, social pedagogies, social stories and um task analysis to make it very, very clear, as in how do you move from friends to more than friends. So, and the conversation has spread out to the parents, as in, what is your comfort zone with me discussing this in class? Because these are conversations that are happening right in front of us. And I don't shy away, but I will take in, the counsel of the families, as in for me to get some shape on that. Uh, and I've only gotten one response back, but it tends to be, over the course of the next week, I know I'll get more in. And it's likely from when I look at the family so far, some people will be very clear as in what they want said. Others will be very clear as in what they don't want said. And then others there's a few different flavors. Others might say, I have no clue. Like, just let me know what is said and we'll do our best to kind of expand there. So it's kind of, I like this about working in a community classroom because I can be in time with the kids and where their interests are. And this is the first time in any of my community classroom experiences where the class has a large proportion of individuals that are trying to figure out. Like one student, I walked past their computer, looked over their shoulder, and they had Googled, what does it mean when insert specific gender touches your hand when you're standing beside them? And as soon as I see that, I'm like, okay, I can't let that stay on Google. Google's not going to be, I don't want Google to be their best friend on this. It's one place to look, fantastic, do your research, but it won't know you. So it's going to give you some suggestions that might seem aspirational, might seem problematic. So as soon as I saw it, I'm like, okay, we're in a new space this year, Clef. We got to talk about, when the students are looking for love. Looking for love. I actually said that in class, and there was a few kids who were like, oh God. I'm like, well, you folks are talking about this out loud, and some of the stuff I hear you saying is not right. Like, it's just not, that's not a good way to come about it. They're like, what do you mean? So and so told me. So Jimmy told me that's what you're supposed to do. I'm like, don't listen to Jimmy. Do not listen to Jimmy. Jimmy is not I said, you're welcome to share with Jimmy. Don't take Jimmy's advice. They're like, why? I'm like, because Jimmy's not 53. Jimmy's a year younger than you. I don't think Jimmy has the life experience of building relationships to help you out. So
I
it's in
love
this case. So here's where Jimmy's useful. Don't listen to Jimmy. Do not listen to Jimmy. Now, in this case, Jimmy was actually sitting in my class. So Jimmy's another student in my class. So they all look across. They're like, we can't listen to you. Club says we get, and Jimmy's like, hey, come on. I got game. I'm like, you do not have game. You do not have game. I said,
Club
anyone,
says we can't listen to you.
yeah. I said, anyone that actually has game never says they have game. The first rule of having game, you don't say you got game. All right.
Rochelle said that would be awesome. I think she's referring to me reading a picture book to students at
Yep.
lunch on Christmas, near Christmas time,
Mm-hmm.
during Advent.
Mm-hmm.
That's a faith-filled joke between Rochelle and I guess. Everybody calls it Christmas time, but really it's Advent.
Yep.
Christmas didn't happen during Advent. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. And, and then she said, have a wonderful Sunday. So I
Fantastic.
think those are her final words.
Yep. That's it. Off we go.
Off we go. So have a great day
You
and
too, dude.
thanks a lot. Um, I'm going to go do something to fill my bucket for a little bit before I focus on a little bit of schoolwork
Mm-hmm.
on this day. And then my son has hockey later. So I want to make sure I'm all set for this work week before I go to hockey.
Happy for you that you're sounding healthier. It sounds like
Thanks.
you're coming back into yourself again, as far as the faculties, the energies, just the positivity. You sound like you're on the mend. So good for you.
I am, but there are moments. You know
Mm-hmm.
when you push too far and you're like, oh, now I got
Mm-hmm.
no gas left. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. But that's the only way to know where you are. So
true, true.
yeah. When it's always good or always bad, you never really know where you are. It's all in recovery is where you get a good measure of where you're at.
True that,
There
Jimmy.
we go. Get through that, Jimmy. That's awesome. All
Okay,
right.
this was season 8, episode 8, number 314 of the Decoded Podcast. Peace.
Peace, man.